Hi, I'm Danford, and we're doing another episode of Money Made Easy for dadsdivorce.com. Great question from the website, and honestly, one that I really like the opportunity to address today. Okay, the question from our viewer is, I'm 57 and invest conservatively in my 401k. The market seems to be on a rebound though, so should I consider being more aggressive? Okay, I don't talk about this subject more than 40 or 50 times a year. This is the question that comes up with maybe the most frequency of anything. And it's partly because so many people have 401k plans, and the 401k plans allow them to make adjustments. And simply because the plans allow you to make adjustments, it feels like you should make adjustments. Hence, we get the questions. So I'm just going to start out by telling you I'm going to tell you there are a lot of people who believe a lot of different things about investing, but today I'm going to share with you some of my philosophical beliefs about investing. The first thing I'm going to tell you is do not touch your 401k. Okay, especially regarding things that you hear about the economic environment. There's a famous Harry Truman quote that goes back, 40 or 50 years when he was president of the United States, and he said what the United States needs is a one-armed economist. And his answer was, basically what he was saying was, every time you ask an economist a question, they'll tell you, well, this is the circumstance, and this is the circumstance, and this is the circumstance, but then on the other hand, enlist you another whole list of circumstances. It's true that in the United States, in the world today, you can find two equally prominent economists who can predict completely different things about what's going to happen. Okay, now if these are people with PhDs in economics and they can't agree about what's going to happen, how in the world do you think you're going to be able to figure out what's going to happen with your 401k? When I ask this question and work with people all the time, what they do is they tell me, well, I heard somebody on television and they said that the market's going to collapse. Or one of my friends on the assembly line who takes care of his own investing and he always does a great job, he tells me he pulled out of the market. Okay? And those things may be true, but I'm just telling you, those people do not know what's going to happen next. Okay? We manage nearly $100 million for a variety of clients, and we don't try to jump in and out of the market. Okay, we don't try to move out of stocks when the stock market's going to collapse and back into stocks when the stock market's going to come back. Because truthfully, there's been nobody ever who was proven consistent on doing that. Okay, there are people who get it right for a few years, and you'll see them on CNBC. Okay? And when they get on CNBC, they'll say, now this guy has been right. He's racked up this huge list of winning years, and he's made his investors X number of dollars. But it's also true that next year it will be a completely different guy. Even these people who get it right typically get it right for a specific period of time, and then they don't get it right anymore. The simple way I say it is they get it right again and again and again right up until they get it wrong. And that's what happens. So here's what I'm going to tell you about your 401k. Okay? You should make decisions on your 401k investment allocation based on your circumstances. Okay? Let's say you're a 40-year-old person and you're going to work for another 20 years, okay, until you're 60. Okay, that being the case, you can be pretty aggressive. You can have 60, 70, or 80% of your portfolio in stock-type funds. And over a 20-year period of time, they will likely grow to more than you would have if you left 40 or 50 or 60 or 70% in bonds. Okay, that's what long-term averages tell us. Okay, it's not a guarantee, but that's what's likely to happen. Okay, now if you're 50 or 55, maybe you don't want to be quite that aggressive. Maybe you only want to have 50% of your money in stock-type funds. Okay, that might make sense. Maybe your risk tolerance is lower. You just can't stand the ups and downs. I get all that. But your mix ought to be based on you and your circumstances, not based on what Jim Cramer said on TV last night. not based on what Susie Orman said in her latest book. It ought to be based on your circumstances, and then you ought to stick with it. It's really interesting. In the last couple of years, we've seen the worst stock markets ever. At one time, the stock market was up over 14,000, and it dropped down to about 6,600. Okay, that's over 50%. Okay, and we had clients, not a lot of them, but a few, who would call and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm just scared to death. I should get back out of the market because I just can't stand it anymore. I can't afford to lose anymore." And our advice was always the same. You know, we built this portfolio based on your circumstances, and you should stick with it until the markets come back. Now, the markets have come back to 11,000, 12,000, and I've actually had people call and thank me for talking them into staying in the market. In other words, there was no way to predict that the market was going to fall or specifically when the market was going to come back. So the best course of action was to stay with those carefully made plans that we made way back then. And that's my suggestion to you. Make an educated decision about what your asset allocation ought to be in your 401k plan, and then stick with it. And don't let anybody else give you advice or talk you out of doing what's right, because you will come to regret it later on. That's it for another episode of Money Made Easy for Dad's Divorce. I'm Dan Danford, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks.